Besama well, Mefeskadus, Ahadu Amlak. Besama well, Mefeskadus, Adahamlak. Besama well, Mefeskadus, Ahadu Amlak. Amen. Yes, blessed love, good morning. So today's chapter 19 of Genesis, is quite long and detailed, so I'm going to get straight into it and see how we get on with the reason. Give thanks, blessed love. And two of the messengers came towards Sodom at the evening, and Lot is sitting at the gate of Sodom. And Lot sees and rises to meet them, and bows himself face to the earth, and he says, Now behold, my lords, please turn aside to the house of your servant, and lodge, and wash your feet. Then you have risen early and gone on your way. And they say, No, but we lodge in the broad place. And he presses on them greatly, and they turn aside to him, and come into his house. And he makes a banquet for them, and has baked unleavened things, and they eat. Before they lie down, the men of the city, men of Sodom, have surrounded the house, from young even to aged, and all the people from the extremity. And they call to Lot and say, Where are the men who have come to you tonight? Bring them out to us, and we know them. And Lot goes out to them to the opening, and the door has shut behind them, and says, Please, my brothers, do not do evil. Now behold, I have two daughters who have not known anyone. Please let me bring them out to you, and do to them as is good in your eyes. Only do nothing to these men. And therefore they have come in within the shadow of my roof. And they say, Come near here. They also says, This one has come to sojourn, and he certainly judges. Now we do evil to you more than to them. And they press against the man, against Lot greatly, and have come near to break the door. And the men put forth their hand, and bring it in Lot to them into the house, and they have shut the door. And the men who are at the opening of the house, they have been struck with blindness, from the small even to the great, and they weary themselves to find the opening. And the men say to Lot, Whom have you here still? Son-in-law, your sons also, and your daughters, and all whom you have in the city, bring them out from this place, for we are destroying this place. For their cry has been great before the face of God, and Yahweh does send us to destroy it. Lot goes out and speaks to his sons-in-laws, and taking his daughters, and says, Rise, go out of this place, for Yahweh is destroying the city, and he is as one mocking in the eyes of his son-in-laws. And when the dawn has ascended, then the messengers press on Lot, saying, Rise, take your wife and your two daughters, who are found present, lest you are consumed by iniquity of the city. And he lingers, and the men lay hold on his hand, and on the hand of his wife, and on the hand of his two daughters, and through the mercy of Yahweh to him, and they bring him out, and cause him to rest outside the city. And it comes to pass, when he has brought them outside, that he says, Escape for your life, do not look behind you, nor stand in all the circuit, escape to the mountains, lest you are consumed. And Lot says to them, Oh, not so, my eyes, Lord. Now behold, your servant has found grace in your eyes, and you make great your kindness which you have done with me, by saving my life, and I am unable to escape to the mountain, lest the evil cleave to me, and I have died. Now behold, this city is near to flee there, and it is this little. Please let me escape there. Is it not little, that my soul may live? And he says to him, Behold, I have also accepted your face for this thing, without overthrowing the city, for which you have spoken. Hurry, escape there, and I am not able to do so anything. Sorry, I'll read that sentence again. Hurry, escape there, for I am not able to do anything until you're entering there. Therefore he calls the name of the city Zoar. The sun has gone out of the earth, and Lot has entered into Zoar. And Yahweh has rained on Sodom and on Gomorrah, brimstone and fire from Yahweh, from the heavens, and he overthrows the city and all the circuit, and all the inhabitants of the city, and that which is shooting up from the ground. And his wife looks from behind him, and she becomes a pillar of salt. And Abraham rises in the morning to the place where he has stood before, to the face of Yahweh, and he looks on the face of Sodom and Gomorrah, and all the face of the land in the circuit, and sees, and behold, the smoke of the land went up, and a smoke of the furnace. And it comes to pass, in God destroying the cities of the circuit, and God remembers Abraham, and Lot, and sends Lot out of the midst of so I'll read that sentence again. And it comes to pass, in God's destroying the cities of the circuit, and God remembers Abraham, and sends Lot out of the midst of the overthrow, in the overthrowing of the cities in which Lot dwelt. And Lot goes up out of Zoar, and dwells in the mountain, and his 2 daughters with him, for he has been afraid of dwelling in Zoar. And as he dwells in the cave, he and his 2 daughters. And the firstborn says to the younger, Our father is old, there is not a man in the earth to come into us, as is the way of all the earth. Come, we cause our father to drink wine, and we lie with him, and preserve a seed from our father. And they cause their father to drink wine on that night. And the firstborn goes in and lies with her father, and he has not known in her lying down or in her rising up. And it comes to pass on the next day that the firstborn says to the younger, Behold, I have lain with my father last night. We also cause him to drink wine tonight. Then go in and lie with him, and we shall preserve our seed from our father. And they cause their father to drink wine on that night also. And the younger rises and lies with him, and he has not known in her lying down or in her rising up. And the 2 daughters of Lot conceive of their father, from their father. And the firstborn bears a son, and calls his name Moab, and he is the father of Moab to this day. And the younger, she has also borne a son, and calls his name Ben-Ami, and he is the father of the sons of Ammon to this day. For these few words I give thanks. Blessed love. So I actually found this a difficult chapter. I've read it a couple of times. I don't always read, well, actually this is the first time that I've had to read the chapter a few times before doing the recording. And actually what happened with this, I started reading, then I stopped the recording and read it a couple of times, and then, read it again, because actually I find it quite difficult. And you saw there I was kind of tripping up a few times. And the subject matter is difficult. The subject matter I find extremely difficult, and I think it is one of the more challenging chapters in the Bible. We see at the beginning, just to give an overview, Lot is visited by some messengers, 2 messengers, and he convinces them to stay in his house. And then the people of Sodom surround the house, wanting to basically abuse these 2 men. But to save the messengers, Lot offers up his own daughters to the mob and says, do with them what you will, to save these 2 messengers. Now that alone is really extreme and disturbing, and it shows the moral depravity of that area, Sodom and Gomorrah, and just how the moral compass was completely failing, which is why God wanted to destroy Sodom and Gomorrah. And Lot himself is also being corrupted by that lack of morality, I'd say. But then the messengers don't let the mob come in. He strikes the mob with blindness, and then the 2 messengers then go about saving Lot's household. So he gathers his daughters. The son-in-laws mock him and don't believe it's a true threat. So Lot leaves his future son-in-laws, but him, his wife, and the 2 daughters flee, and the messengers say, don't look back. And it's quite a famous story that Lot's wife looks back and gets turned into a pillar of salt. So then all that's left is Lot and his two daughters. And then Lot and his two daughters go into a cave. And then this is the really shocking thing of the chapter. Lot's daughters say, there's no other men on earth that we can be with, and our future husbands have now been killed in the destruction. So they get their father drunk and they both sleep with their father over consecutive days. It says that Lot doesn't know it's happening, but they both bear children for their sons for their father. One is called Moab, and the other son is Ammon. So it's basically two sons of incest, where their father is also their grandfather. So really shocking narrative, I think, in chapter 19. Really shocking. I do know that the Moabites and the Ammonites, so the descendants of those two, Ammon and Moab, the descendants become two nations that in later elements of the Bible actually become enemies of Israel and problematic relationships with Israel. And I do know that some say that the writing of this particular chapter and showing that the descendants of the Moabites and the Ammonites actually shows, I guess, sinister lineage. So the reason why the Ammonites and the Moabites are enemies of Israel, and it throws into question their parentage, etc., because they are descendants of this incest. So it's kind of like a nationalistic kind of narrative to throw their enemies into this kind of shade, if you want to put it like that. I don't know if I've explained that correctly. Hopefully I've explained what I've meant there. But so throws into question those lineage of their future enemies. So there's a nationalistic tendency to this chapter, but it also just shows the moral depravity of Sodom and Gomorrah, and kind of explains in this context why God was moved to want to destroy the cities of Sodom and Gomorrah, because the moral compass was so completely off what he wanted from the children of God. It's interesting that Lot was still saved and as Abraham's nephew, and as we've seen, Abraham is a very loyal individual. That he's an intercessor. He acts on behalf and argues on behalf of humans. So even though Lot offered in a very shocking way his own daughters up to the mob, there's something in Lot that God sees as righteous. So yeah, extremely challenging story, extremely challenging, and a lot to unpick. There's much more that could be said, but I think I'll leave it there. And yeah, it's in terms of, I guess, in terms of the relationship with God and God's grace, God's loyalty, God's promises fulfilled, etc. I think there's some themes here that we start to see kind of emerging, but then how that kind of reconciles in future narratives. So it's opening up things that then gets reconciled a bit later down the line. So I will leave it there. For these few words, I give thanks. Have a blessed day. And looking forward to tomorrow's reading. We'll see what that one has in store. Yet a breakfast here.